Hi everybody, my name is Hannah Hanks. I am your president for Dixie Pre-Medical Alliance, and today we're going to be talking about patient exposure as well as shadowing. I'm sorry that this is not recorded via Zoom. I didn't really want to show my face, so this is just our recording for today. So today let's talk about patient exposure. So I'm kind of like a big person and like to filter things down. So first we have our medical school application, which I'm sure you all know what you need and what you want and what you're aiming for, either from your own research or from Doug or from whoever else you work with your application. But let's kind of just talk about each thing really quickly and then delve into our topic a little more. So first we have our GPA and MCAT. These kind of get your foot in the door. Obviously, you want a high GPA and you want a really great MCAT, always a plus. And then we kind of build off of that. We're like, okay, we want some medical experience as well, which we're going to talk about today. Volunteering, this kind of shows that you have this innate desire to serve. It also shows a lot of initiative as well as creativity. It shows just a lot of cool personality traits that they want to see in a medical school admissions committee. Then we have research, which kind of shows I would say intellectual curiosity, like an interest in science, because you are picking this field where research is the heart of medicine, in my opinion, for a lot of the time. It is the cornerstone of new and advancing technologies, and it's really important. And then finally, leadership. Because you will be a leader for patient care, for patient advocacy, you'll be leading the healthcare team as a physician. So these are all really important. And they all come together to create your medical school application. Now, in my opinion, today we're talking about medical experience, which honestly, in my opinion, is one of the earlier or one of the first things you should look at when you're thinking about applying to medical school. Now, like, what's the big whoop about medical experience and patient exposure hours? Well, how do you know if you like interacting with patients? Like I said earlier, research is the heart of medicine. I should say research is the brain of medicine, and patients are the heart of medicine because you are interacting with these patients. They are who you're serving. It's nice to know who you're going to be serving. Like, do you even like working with these people? And then also, is this something worth pursuing for you? Because patients are kind of like the heart of medicine. You're going to be treating, you're going to be doing research, you're going to be assessing, you're going to be charting on, you're going to be working with these patients. That's like kind of your job. And you want to know if it's worth it or not. Is it something worth pursuing? Because you're going to be investing time and hours and tears and blood and sweat and all these things into this profession for years. And if you get to the end of it and you realize, I don't like doing this, then what's the point? This is a quote that I found on a blog not very long ago while I was writing my personal statement, and it really kind of stuck out to me. It's by a medical student. I think he's a second year now. But he says, it not only gave me a visceral view of my career as a future physician, but the experience also gave me an overarching purpose that organized and propelled my learning. I've come to see that sitting through a lecture is no longer a tedious task, or a tedious necessity of my medical education, but an essential building block that lays the foundations of my medical career. I love this quote, mostly because it talks about giving him a purpose. Like when you go into medicine, it's a very long and tedious process. It's a marathon, not a sprint, as everybody says, but you need to have a purpose for that. And oftentimes, like at least for me personally, it's hard to find that purpose. But whenever I do interact with patients or work with in the medical field, I get that purpose back. I like feel inspired to do better. I feel inspired to pursue medicine. Those interactions with patients are so meaningful that it pushes me to want to do even more than I already was. It makes me more passionate about what I'm doing. And it shows me that, hey, you have this real impact right in front of you, which is super, super exciting. Again, he talks about sitting in lectures being, no longer being a tedious necessity, but essential building block. And that's how I view things now. I'm doing all of these things as a pre-med, not because it's a check box to go to medical school, but because these are essential components of being a physician to better care for your patients. Again, patients are the heart of medicine, and if you aren't about that, then this might not be for you. So next slide, maybe. All right, so there's a lot of options to get patient exposure. And I've listed only a couple. There's a lot more than what I've listed, but these are just a couple of the common ones. So medical assistant, it's an MA. There's a course for 1 to 2 years. Sometimes they even just don't even have a course and you do on-the-job training. You have a lot of medical responsibilities here. You could do blood draws, you do vitals, basic assessments, that sort of thing. Super, super awesome. It's a very wide variety of places to work. You have CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant. That course is like 4 to 12 weeks, and then you have like at least 2 weeks in a clinical setting. So that one, you work directly with patients as well. Respiratory therapist, a little less common. They do a course for 2 years. You get an associate's degree from that, so it might prolong your pre-med process a little longer, but it's still an option. Physical therapy assistant, again, course is 2 years, associate's degree. Occupational therapy assistant, again, course is 2 years, associate's degree. Those associate degree ones are a little bit less common just because it adds a lot of extra time, but there's still options for you if you so desire. Most people I've seen so far have been doing an MA or a CNA, and it's worked well for them in the past. Okay, so another one that's really, really common that I've seen is patient scribing or scribing for a doctor and the EMTs. So scribing, you don't need any education that I know of. You kind of get on the job training, you apply. I know a lot of people, I know like 3 or 4 people in the last couple of years that gotten into medical school from Dixie State were scribes, and their experiences were awesome. They work with the doctor, with patients, they get a recommendation from the doctor, they get a medical experience firsthand, and they understand how the medical team works in reality, which is kind of what the point is of patient exposure and medical experience. EMT is really awesome. Again, super hands-on experience. You're first responder. You're there in the down and dirty, getting right in the face of medicine and the reality of medicine. Again, with a paramedic, same kind of deal. You have a lot more responsibility. Course, again, is a little bit longer, a little bit more heavy course load. And then this one is like I put in there. I don't know of anybody that's done this besides 2 other people at Dixie State. So there's me. I have a registered nurse license, and so I work as a nurse now, and that's basically my patient exposure. So all of these things are paid positions, and you could get paid to do them. So there's like a lot of misunderstanding, like, oh, my patient exposure hours have to be all for free. No, that's volunteering. You can get paid to get your patient exposure hours, which in my opinion is amazing because you need somewhere to get all that money to apply to medical school because it costs a ton of money. So by, working as a whatever your experience you decide to be as, plus getting paid, it's just like the best of both worlds. You get to be passionate about something and kind of get interested more and more and fall in love with medicine, as well as get paid to do it. So yeah, it's tedious and yeah, it's time consuming because you have school and you have all these other things you have to do, but I definitely think it's a necessary step of understanding what you're getting into. Again, full disclosure, I have not included everything on this list at all. I've known students that have gone to medical school that are volunteer coordinators, that are volunteer with hospice patients, that volunteer with rehab homes. These are just paid positions to get patient exposure hours. You could get patient exposure hours via volunteering. It doesn't have to be a job. But I've seen more people do like a CNA or an MA rather than a volunteering position. But again, everybody's journey is different. As long as you have experience working with patients and you could talk about that, awesome. So again, just look for those experiences early on, and we'll talk about that right now. Story time. Okay, so patient exposure or medical experience is a way for you to experience the reality of medicine. So you gotta, 1, confirm that this is what you want to do, because how are you gonna know if you've never done it? And 2, it encourages you to do better. Again, that's like finding that purpose, finding that passion behind serving others. Like you get that in volunteering, yeah, but it's not the same capacity as working with these patients that you will be in the future taking care of as a physician. So it's really, really important for you to understand that really early on. That's why like one of the first things I did was like, okay, I need to get patient exposure hours. Do I want to go into medicine or not? Me personally, I didn't know I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a nurse first, so I kind of went into that already like, okay, I want to work with people, I want to work with patients. But once I realized I wanted to be a doctor, I upped the ante on my hours of patient exposure so I could understand, like, okay, is this really what I want to do? Do I want to take care of these people in the capacity of a physician rather than just the capacity of a nurse? And also it helped me differentiate, okay, what kind of specialties do I like? Like, I was able to like fantasize, okay, like, and picture myself in the position of a physician, position of a physician, that's funny. To find what I was even interested in medicine. It gives you, like, it inspires you daily. I have patients that I see on weekends, well, for when I do work, and they're like my friends. Like, I'll go talk to them, they'll talk to me, and we have these stories and these connections and these experiences together that you can't get anywhere else. Like, to me, it's really meaningful. Most of my, well, let's go to the next bullet point, but so again, patient exposure is an integral part of your application experiences. Let's go back to my thing. So personal statement, activities, secondaries, and interviews. I haven't had any of those yet, but while writing about my activities in my personal statement, I've realized that I personally have my most meaningful experiences and my most meaningful interactions and what pushes me towards being a physician is because of my patients. Because of what I've experienced with them rather than what I've done. I see, for example, my personal statement, it's kind of a rough draft right now, but my personal statement discusses a patient that I had that had an MI while I was doing a visit, and I talked about her experience and her recovery and how that all went into making me realize something. Another time, I talked about a patient that I was there when she took her last breath as a hospice nurse, and it definitely impacted me and changed my perspective on not just medicine but of life. So it was really, really eye opening. And those experiences are super real, and it really shows you what medicine is about. And that's why I think it's super important. If you guys know, I'm a meme, so I'm a memer. I love memes. So what idiot wrote this? Oh, I did. Like, to me, it's like without those like really key experiences, which you can get from research and other things, this, like, you can get those experiences, but to me it's like that you're losing the heart of medicine. The heart of medicine is patience, and for me that's why it's such a big integral part of my application. So let's talk about shadowing. Now, medical experience, again, patient exposure hours that working with patients, and then shadowing. So there's two aspects of it. So we talked about patient exposure and shadowing. So shadowing is where you follow the doctor around, basically, and it's been really hard because of COVID. COVID has kind of thrown a wrench in a lot of people's plans, including my own. So let's kind of like talk about what happened. So, what's the big whoop about shadowing? So, shadowing is when you follow around this person of a chosen profession and see what they do in their day-to-day lives. So, that's super important for going into medicine, specifically to be a doctor, because so much goes into that. You devote your years of schooling and years and sleepless nights and lots of homework and lots of exams and lots of stress and anxiety and all of these things that go into being a physician. It's a long, long road, and you want to know if it's worth it at the end. So it's like, do you even want this job? Do you know what the day to day is like? Do you understand the impact that's going to have on your life and what that's going to entail for you in the future? And so it's really important to understand that once you're getting into it. So, I mean, we talked about like how do we get shadowing. So the biggest thing I've noticed here in St. George is the connections that you have. I predominantly have shadowed people of like friends of friends or friends' parents, like that first bullet point. People that you know, so, or people who you work with, or social media. So my friend was like, "Hey, I've shadowed this doctor. Do you want their information?" "Oh my gosh, I'd love that information. Please give it to me." Or for when I'm at work, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, hey, have you worked with this doctor?" "Oh yeah, he's my like neighbor. Oh, can I talk to him about shadowing?" Or like anything along those lines. It's a way easier way to get to work with somebody and get to shadow them because you know them on kind of like a personal level. So those connections are kind of the main way that I've seen people do them. And then programs. So DPMA does have a shadowing program that Colton Rosendahl, our VP of Career Involvement, put together. So that one's really awesome. I think there's 4 to 6 physicians on there that you could be shadow with during the semester. Best in class, there's an internship that was canceled this year, but hopefully will resume next year. That is an amazing thing as well to look into because you get to shadow within the hospital and see how they do things and through different types of specialties and such. And then there's also a ton of study abroad programs. Atlantis has one that's pretty expensive, but you're there usually in a foreign country or somewhere else in the United States, and you get to shadow physicians and do that kind of thing. Um, it's to me, it's really, really important to do these things to find these shadowing opportunities. If you don't have these connections, like for example, when I first moved to Utah, I did not, and I didn't know about these programs. What I did was literally called all these, like I googled like dermatology office and called all the dermatology offices in St. George and said, hey, are you accepting students to shadow? Or another thing that I've done was I've literally walked into a couple of family medicine clinics and said, hey, I am this student, like these are my credentials, here's my resume. I was wondering if I could shadow you. So that worked really well for me as well, to get shadowing opportunities. And then just talking to your fellow pre-meds. DPMA, yeah, we're a club and we have all these things, but getting to know your fellow pre-meds and talking to them is like another really good way to get shadowing. I've gotten shadowing from friends because I really like this doctor, you'll like them too. And it means a lot because this is a collaborative effort getting into medical school. It takes a lot of work as a team as well as an individual, and it's collaboration with each other, not competition. You're going to school with your future coworkers, the people that you're going to call when you're in a mess and you're like, hey, what do you think of this patient? So working with those people, with your friends and with the people that are also pre-med around you is really good, to make those connections between them, but also between the people they work with. So virtual shadowing is a kind of a new thing that has been really blown up in the last year. So the last application cycle luckily only had like a couple months taken off of their cycle, but for us we've had a year of, things basically being shut down. So what I've noticed a lot is that virtual shadowing has taken is very big on like social media. I've seen it a ton. But how do you get it? It's Googling it. So you just check a program. There's thousands, well, I shouldn't say thousands, there's like hundreds of programs that offer virtual shadowing. And so you want to do this if you are really, really low in hours, but look for the schedule and interests that apply to you. If it doesn't apply to your schedule, then obviously don't go for it. If it doesn't interest you, then don't do it. But it's a good introduction to medicine, especially if you need hours. Like this is it's an easy way to kind of dip your toe in the water to see like, what even is medicine as a doctor? What even is medicine? Like even before you go do patient exposure hours, this is a good way, super non-committal, so that you could see like, I'm actually interested in this specialty, or oh, do I even like medicine? Because literally all you do is you click on their link, type in like your name in a Google form, and get sent a Zoom link or a YouTube live link and watch it. And that is like a good way for you to understand what's going on. Again, nothing compares to in-person shadowing, in my opinion. You get to be right there in medicine, next to the doctor, next to the patient. But virtual shadowing is I wouldn't say it's a substitute, but it's a good additive. It's a good thing to add to it. It's kind of just, it amplifies the effect, so that way you could get more experience. But definitely attempt to get your in-person shadowing before you go completely virtual. So some last minute tips and tricks for shadowing. Basically how to ask. Honestly, like I said earlier, I just went off and called everybody. That worked for me. And also just talking to your peers like I talked about before. But you want to really show why you want to shadow this person specifically. If you don't have a reason for wanting to shadow a pediatric cardiologist, then why? Like, is it just to check a box, or is it because you're interested in it? And it's always more meaningful when you're actually interested in that topic. So that's what I recommend leading with in a sense, like, hey, hi, my name is Hannah. I've been really interested in pediatric cardiology. I had a couple questions. I was wondering if I could follow you around for the day and see what its life is like. Please let me know. Here's my email, so on and so forth. So that's like kind of what I would do, and that's what I've done, and it's worked for me. Um, Most of the time, like I said earlier, it's because of like connections I've had with people. And how long do you shadow? Now, this really is up to you and up to the doctor, mostly the doctor, because the doctor's schedule determines when you could go in, and as well as your level of interest. But find out what the doctor's comfortable with and what's worked well in the past. A lot of physicians have already worked with students, either shadowing them while they're in medical school or residency. So they kind of know the drill. They kind of know what they want to do. So ask them and be upfront, but also tell them what you would like too, because this is an experience that you could potentially change your life, honestly. So you want to be sure it's meaningful and that you've thought it out and that you know what kind of you want, but also be super considerate because they're doing you a big favor by letting you follow them around. A lot of people, I specifically was always worried about what to wear when I would shadow. So dress pants and a tie for men, especially in a clinical setting. I've never really seen a tie. Usually it's slacks and a button up, or dress pants and a dress for women. Again, I do wear the dress pants pretty often, especially when I'm in clinic, but when I am shadowing in the emergency department or in the operating room, I tend to wear scrubs. A lot of the times that's because sometimes I'm asked to do skills in the operating room or the the emergency department, and that's because of my experience with those physicians. Like I'd shadow them, well, I'd work with them as a nurse and then say, hey, can I shadow you? And they're like, sure, why not? And then I come in as shadowing, and then it's like, oh, well, can you do this for me? And it's like, sure, why not? But I have to be prepared for that. So again, that's something you discuss with the physician you're going to shadow beforehand, just to clarify what the boundaries are and what they're willing to let you do within the scope of practice that you have. So be sure to talk about that too. Another couple things is, one, bring a notebook. It's not professional at all to have your phone out when you're shadowing, so put your phone away. I always hide mine in my locker or in the backpack, and sometimes I've even left it in the car while I am in there, while I'm shadowing. Some doctors are okay with it. Again, you need to talk to them about it, but have a notebook there. That to me is way more meaningful, to like actually write stuff down, to jot things down that you learn. I oftentimes, when I'm shadowing, will jot down different diseases that I was like, that's really interesting, or like a new vocabulary word, then talk to them after between patients. You want to ask questions for these doctors. That's my second point, is you want to ask them what life is like, because that's the point of this experience. And you do it between patients, obviously not in the patient room. But you ask these questions between patients, but also have questions prepared for them. For example, I shadowed a pediatric cardiologist once because I really, really, really liked cardiology, and I was like, maybe pediatric cardiology would be really interesting. And I asked her, why do you like this? And she gave me a reason, and I was like, maybe that's not for me. And then I would like say, hey, what's your schedule like for emergency room doctor? And it's like, well, this is what it's like, and like what it's really like, rather than like what Reddit or online says it is. And it's nice to get that real in-person thing. It's like, wow, I do like that way more than I thought I would. So be prepared to ask questions. Be prepared to be interacting with these people, because they are people, and you want to know if you want to be like, you want to know what you're getting yourself into. That's the main point of shadowing. But yeah, that's the end of my presentation. So thank you for listening this far, those of you that have. Mine's 23 minutes. It's like a little longer. But if you guys have any questions, like hit us up with DPMA for our Instagram or our email. Again, I apologize that this is not in person. Let's see if I could even turn on my camera. But again, let us know if you have any questions, and get out there and experience the heart of medicine, because it will either inspire you to pursue it even more, or it will turn you away. But I do hope it inspires you, because patients are the heart of medicine and they are awesome in every way. So thank you guys for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.